Hello everybody, this is Jason from Iron Mission. Thank you so much for being here. In today's video, we're going to be putting on a brand new exhaust on the Pan America. Actually make it sound like something. Let's go take a look. Alright, so here we go. We've got the Vance and Hines for the Pan America. You get the exhaust. You get the pipe that's going to replace that silly resonator. I'll show you that in a second. The heat shields with the clamps. The clamp to put the exhaust on. The mounting bracket. A couple of springs. And so the Vance and Hines is going to replace this big bulky thing along with that big black resonator down there. We're going to save about 6 pounds, boost up the horsepower and the torque by about 5 on the horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque. So a little bit of gain there, but I'm really looking forward to losing that 6 pounds and maybe adding a little bit more sound. All right, in terms of the tools, it should be pretty simple. We've got an adjustable wrench there, socket set with an extension, and then we've got a couple torques. We need a T27, a T40, and then you need a socket set. I mean, you're going to need a 5/16, a ½ inch, a 15 millimeter, and this is a, I believe it is a 5 millimeter Allen. We've got our spring puller that came with the actual kit, and I think that should be about it in terms of the tools. It should be a pretty straightforward install. Sorry, that is a 6 mil, not a 5 mil on your Allen head. So first step, it is recommended to remove the center stand. You just pull out the springs, use a 6 millimeter hex. There's 2 bolts on each side right underneath where you can see right here. But can I make a recommendation? If you could have a second person just kind of hold that center stand down towards the ground for the rest of the steps where it's in the way, do not pull the center stand. And the reason why, getting this off is not hard. Again, it says that 6 millimeter hex. There's 2 bolts on this side, 2 on the other, not a big deal. Getting it reassembled is the issue. You've got this skinny little spring puller that they give you, and I got the first spring on. The second one, I was doing like full on back rows, and I could not get that second spring on with that skinny little spring puller. So you could just have somebody push this down towards the ground like that. It will be out of the way. Trust me, it'll be fine. But getting it back on, I've left it off right now until I can get a real spring puller because it is really tough to get back on. So next thing, use a T40 and an adjustable wrench back there. Go ahead and loosen this. I wouldn't take this all the way out, otherwise it's going to just be hanging there. Just loosen this for right now with your T40. All right, then just take your 5/32, loosen that clamp right there. That is the exhaust. It's being held on to the resonator there. So we're loosening that up real fast. And so now, again, the thing right now is I'm not pulling all of this stuff off at once. I'm just getting all of it loose. It'll make it easier to remove it a little bit later. So heat shield, just use a T27. That will get that clamp right off of there on that side. And then you're going to have another T27 you got to remove over here. Once that's off, you can just pull that heat shield right off, and that will give you access to the clamp that's in the back that you've already loosened. So just move that clamp out of the way, then it should already be loose, and then we'll go ahead and get the exhaust off. Now remember, you already kind of loosened this to give a little bit of play for the exhaust, and so now the next step is just take that adjustable wrench and take your T40 and go ahead and get this bolt off all of the way, and we could take the exhaust and pull that thing right off at this point. Just go ahead and work the exhaust side to side gently. Try not to scratch anything up, but it should pull right off. Doesn't usually take a whole lot of effort to get the exhaust off of that resonator. All right, let's get this resonator off. You're going to need a 15 millimeter socket. Yeah, I was able to just go ahead and kind of get that thing in there under the brake there. So just loosen that. That is one of 2 steps to get this piece off of here. The other bolt is hidden under your brake lever, so we're going to have to get to that in a second. All right, rear brake assembly is going to need to be moved out of the way. This is a T40. There's 2 size bolts here. There's a longer one and a shorter one. The longer one is the top bolt. The shorter one is the bottom. Make note of that when you reassemble all of this stuff. We got to move this out of the way because there's one more bolt behind there that we need to access so that we can actually remove the resonator. And right there is the secret hidden bolt. You can tug on this thing all you want, but it's not going anywhere until you remove that one. So go ahead, get that out of there. And once that is loosened up, you just pull this thing off and you're good to start assembling your new pipe onto the bike. Now, I just put the rear brake assembly right back on. It wasn't going to get in the way. It didn't get in the way. So I really didn't want that hanging there by the brake line. It's just not the best thing to do. You could zip tie it up there if you wanted to keep it out of the way until you get the full exhaust on, but it wasn't in the way. So I just put the thing back on. I just reused the original clamp. It's a brand new bike. Go ahead and slip the pipe on. I don't tighten this all the way down, so I just kind of left it there. We're going to go ahead and get the rest of the exhaust on before I tighten this part down. Before the exhaust goes on, you got to put that bracket on. So I'm trying to show you here the orientation. There is a dog bone that has to go kind of slide into the bracket there. And so we just kind of slide that in. Let me show you. So that's the piece right here. So you kind of slide this piece in, just this one right here. It goes in, kind of just use your finger just to stop it. Then you're going to line up the bracket, use the supplied bolts, go ahead and just get it secure. Again, don't tighten anything all the way down right now. It's better. Trust me, it's just so much easier when you've got a little bit of play with everything, just to kind of move stuff around to get it situated. You can torque everything down later. For right now, I'm just getting this bracket in there and secured enough so that I can get the pipe onto the bike. So here I'm reusing the original bolt that they give, but they do have a nut that they supply that you're going to want to use. And so again, this thing here, I'm not torquing this down yet. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the nut that they supply, and then I'm going to tighten this up just enough to hold the exhaust in place. So right now everything is loose. That hose clamp all the way at the bottom right, that's still pretty loose. This is going to be somewhat loose as well. The dog bone is loose as well. After messing with those kickstand springs for like 30 minutes and failing, these were nothing. I mean, you barely even need the spring puller to get these two guys on. These are supplied. So just one on the top, one on the bottom. That's actually holding the exhaust to that pipe extension right there. So that's, between the bolt that you see that we've already kind of messed with and the clamp and these two things, it holds everything into place. But this is a pretty easy step compared to getting the center stand springs connected. Now that everything is in place, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to actually start tightening everything down. And so I went ahead and the dog bone that's back there, went ahead and tightened those down. We'll go ahead and tighten the bolt down that's holding that bracket in place, as well as the hose clamp here in a couple of seconds. And so this can all be tightened down now. And now we've basically got something that's almost ready to go. The last thing that we need to add is the heat shield. And so I'm going to show you how this is orientated. They give you these two hose clamps as well. And so the heat shield, there's a little notch, and that little notch goes to the top. It's supposed to be a cutaway for the swing arm, although I don't really think it's all that necessary because the heat shield doesn't really come all that close to the swing arm. But this is how you orientate it. This is how you get the thing on, so that in the end, what you want are those screws facing down. And so it's going to make it a lot easier to tighten this all up once it's on the bike. I had a screwdriver just sitting here. I just found it was a lot easier just to use the screwdriver to tighten this thing down. And at that point, assembly is done. Last thing you're going to want to do is just wipe off all your fingerprints and all the grease and oil and everything. Especially if you're using the stainless, those fingerprints on there, if you leave those on there, it's going to stain your exhaust. So just get all those oils off from your fingers and everything else. Make it look all nice and pretty before you fire this bad boy up. And of course, I'm going to show you before and after coming up right here. You're going to see what it sounds like. It can be difficult to actually tell the difference in terms of volume, but this new exhaust is a lot louder than stock. I think it sounds better. It doesn't sound like a traditional V-twin Harley. That's quite all right, but absolutely thought this was a great improvement on the bike. If you want to see my initial thoughts on the Pan America in general, check out that video in the upper right-hand corner. Really appreciate you being here. Ride safe, everybody.